very nice to meet you properly. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony, for making this happen.
Yeah.
Okay, I think I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we are live on YouTube. I think I've sorted that out. Let me just start recording. Okay. So good morning, everyone. My name is Bamdele Toying. I'm called Patel, and it's so great to have everyone here for the final session on Series 2 for the Venture Matrix for the Future of Africa. And here with me, we have Aaisha Nimashang and Usen Michael Joseph, who will be discussing faith for change. Yeah, we'll be trying to demystify and understand how does faith, culture, and the religious institution directly influence national growth and development, especially for our undergraduate community, and how can we use this as tools to increase our participation and inclusion in the economic value creation conversation about the future of Africa. So as we normally do it, we would have 4 series of conversations. The first would be a trivia, where we get to establish connection with our guests and just understand who they are beyond who we've been able to Google them, and beyond maybe our restricted or limited understanding of who they are and what makes them tick. And with this conversation. Secondly, we're going to have the discourse, where we try to demystify areas that are unclear to us on how to approach the understanding of these concepts, right? The third session is a strategy session where our guests will give us practical insights on actionable plans and actionable concepts that we can begin to work on. Then we'll round up with the forum, where we discuss the one thing that defines what should be done, evaluated, and measured over this next decade or this next period that will define our place in the future. So welcome once again to our guest, Aaisha. It's so great to have you.
Thank you.
Yes, and then Usen Michael Joseph. So how we'll do this is it's just going to be a conversation, right? And the first thing we're going to discuss, especially as highlighted in the series, is the concept of the first wave, right? So Aaisha is a Muslim and Usen is a Christian. So and they both happen to be Obafemi Awolowo University graduates, which makes it very interesting. So we can even see difference in perspectives within the same community, right? So we'll be talking in general terms, but you can get as specific and as personal as you want to be. So first thing we want to establish is, in the series, we talk about the first wave, right? The first wave being that political, social, and environmental or economic event that shakes up the undergraduate community and makes them come alive to start to question things, right? So we'd like to know, within the religious context, within your religious beliefs and all of that, what was the first wave for you as an undergraduate? So I think we'll have Aaisha first, then we'll have Usen.
Okay, thank you very much for having me. The first wave really is, because when I read your article, which was really insightful, and you divided all these the the economic transformation into various various. Okay, I'm a bit nervous. I'm just going to put that out there. So maybe once I get that nervous, it would go away. I don't know. So
It's fine.
when you divide it into like various parts and everything, it was very interesting because I think for the Muslim community, I would say we're still in the beginning. We are not very, we have unfortunately a lot of trust issues. So we're not very out there. I would say in some sectors we are out there. For example, modest fashion is a thing and it's very developed, and it's very global. But I would like to see in other areas, other sectors like the travel industry, like the food industry, we're still in the first wave inputs. I hope I'm answering the question correctly.
Yes, you actually even answering the second question already, but we wanted to learn what was that? Okay, like you were the leader of the MSSN community while you were an
The
undergraduate. So
co-president.
yeah, you were the co-president. So what was that major event that happened during your time that kind of inspired you to lead differently?
Well, okay, let me just put it out there. Honestly, I cannot say I succeeded, at leading differently. Some of it my fault, and some of it just the systems in place that didn't make it possible for that to happen.
Mm,
But like the event that we had, that economic conference, really born out of frustration, that I really felt that, like, generally there's this book. Okay, let me just start with that book. There's this book by Shelina Zahra Jan Muhammad. It's called Generation I can't remember the dot and everything that follows, but it talks about how the global Muslim economies, I can't even say economy, is so wide and so untapped. And I was seeing this too, how we have many things that are kind of unique to Muslims and people are not catering to them. But if there are people that are catering to them, there are people who don't understand our industries. And I have to be honest with you, when I did that conference, I am not disappointed now, but then I was very disappointed because people were coming late, people were not asking the questions I wanted. I didn't see that, like, paradigm shift I really wanted. So, that was it. That was it.
wow, awesome. So it was birthed from a challenge, from what you were
Mhm.
experiencing. Awesome, awesome. Thank you. Okay, I think you're on mute now.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I think I should say that again. It was really insightful listening to Ms. Aisha speak. Now, for me, where I hope I'm clear. I'm audible, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes, you are. Yes.
All right. So, for me, where the major shift came for me personally was I was born in a Christian home. The average religious person is born into the culture of his parents' choice and all. So I was born into a Christian home. I grew up having a general idea of what Christianity was like. Um, so living in that bubble, I've lived in that bubble like almost all my life. It's us against the rest of the world. It's we Christians against even Jews who and it's amazing how that the book that we have, the Holy Bible, is a fusion of Judeo-Christian ideas and all. So you have the Old Testament, which is purely Judo, which is the Jewish book, the Torah, and they'll add it to our New Testament books, which is the adding of our epistles written by the apostles of Jesus Christ and all of that, and the gospel, which is the life of Jesus. So basically, I lived in that Christian bubble, that general Christian bubble that disconnected what I believed from what was happening in the world around me. I was taught that we needed to rapture, to disappear. Most of the ideas, the backlog of ideas that was passed down at me. So I felt like, okay, I always needed to escape. I was living in a world where the world was evil. I needed to run away. The love of money was the root of all evil. I had ideas that if I made money, I was going to lose my salvation. And also, those were the basic ideas that I had growing up. I felt like I couldn't stand up to my parents to tell them what my thoughts were, my feelings were, because I felt that it was going to be tantamount to disrespect or dishonor. And then, like how scripture says that if you don't honor your parents, your life is going to be short, or so that your days will be long on earth. So, in other words, if you don't honor them, you're going to die young. And also, I had many of those ideas in my head. But when I entered into school, I entered into school. Of course, that's how the academic environment gets you to start thinking differently. I realized I was no longer under the protection of my parents. I was on my own. I had to fend for myself. Of course, my parents were sending money here and there, but they was making money. They was always sending me money, but I had to basically make decisions for myself. So I realized that there was no God outside there that was helping me make decisions. I had to make decisions for myself. I started seeing how that many scriptural instructions, which I spiritualized because of the training that I had as a Christian, were actually instructions that could be applied in everyday life. So at first, it was a huge shock for me. I almost headed into atheism. I became an agnostic for a period of time. I walked away from the faith completely because it looked like as though I was told a lie. I honestly could not believe that my Bible was what it was. It looked to me like a very super spiritual book, but then I started seeing it as something I could have. For example, Proverbs 15:1 says, "A soft answer turns wrath away." That's simple thing. It's something that can be applied in anybody's life as well. So I began to see how that my Bible made sense. My culture, the culture of Christianity was not what I was taught. I was taught religion. I was taught religion in the sense of what somebody passed down to me. So I became agnostic for a while. I almost headed into atheism, but somehow along the line, I somehow had some eureka moments, and I began to cope with the things I was seeing. And for me, it made me start questioning a lot of things. When someone tells me something, the Bible tells me that a woman cannot preach, I ask why? Why can't she preach? And then I began to ask a lot of questions. And I think that happened for me around 2010, 2011, was around that time when that major shift happened for me. It was a big meltdown of all my belief systems. Everything I knew up until that point was completely destroyed. And then I had to build up again from scratch. But I'm still in the faith. I give thanks to God. So, but basically that was it for me. That was basically it for me.
Wow, amazing, amazing. Because it makes me reflect back on the conversations we're having in the piece, and it says that most times change always starts with asking questions. Questioning the things, questioning the reality, questioning some belief systems that you already have what accepted, right? So the second thing I want to ask, right, in this first section is, what was the thing that most inspired you to think differently and follow that daunting road, right? That looked totally different from what you had known most of your life. So Aisha, you go first again, and then Usen would give a response to that.
Okay, I'm sorry, please, somebody is talking. So can you mute? I don't know.
Yes, I'm sorry. So I'm in an office, and so there are
Oh,
people that are
okay.
talking. So that's why,
Okay.
yes,
Okay,
it was
okay.
from me. Yes.
All right, no problem. So I'm just going to put it out there that I am not business driven. I am a community organizer. So nothing I do has to do with business, unfortunately. If I wanted to do business today, I would, give my money to somebody to help me with the business. I would invest. I'm not business driven at all. But with that being said, like the role I am in, or the role I'm currently treading, and I hope to, do, is like and hopefully it's a kind of role whereby when people come to me with these kinds of issues about business, and can I do this, can I how can I drive, really, how can I be successful? And when you're successful, ultimately you actually drive that kind of transformative economic change that we are discussing here. It's the kind of role that, like, I tell people, I try to show them a different kind of perspective. So what sort of the question that you asked, that what sort of inspired me, was really I would say like my legacy as a Muslimah is one that is very rich in these kinds of change that I didn't discover early enough. And that was really it for me. I mean, just like, when I look at the scholars, classical scholars of the past, people often look at them as only purely scholars who are religious scholars. But people like Imam Ghazali, people that are Muslim will know them, or if you did religious studies, Imam Ghazali, Ibn Taymiyyah, these people literally wrote economic dissertations about the world they lived in at that time. Ibn Khaldun was not just a sociologist, but he was an economist too. And that for me is it. It's a holistic thing for me. So I cannot just afford to say, oh, I just want to focus on my religion. I have to clearly interact with the outside world and not just do it, but do it well. Because that's, I'm not enough here. I have to, yeah. So that's it.
Wow, brilliant submission. Thank you so much for that. So, yes, so what about you, Mr. Usen?
Okay, basically, just so that I don't miss it. The question I'm asking is, what changed? What the thing that really changed it for me, basically, right?
Yes, that inspired you. After asking those questions, and then it looked like a totally new world. What inspired you to keep going and treading down that road? Because one thing that we experience as groundbreakers in this age is that we don't have realities we can relate to. Like what we're trying to do with the venture matrix, right? It's not a reality, but creating it from scratch. So, what inspired you to, explore this your new context of adventure that you have just found out?
Okay, the best answer I'm going to give to that is social media, and I'm going to try to give context. I'm going to try to give context to that. So, at the time I began to question a number of things, um, my present Christian community at that time spewed me out. I was I was a pariah. So everybody, the church I was in at the time picked me and singled me out and told everybody in the flock to um, leave me alone. They should not take me with them and all. So it looked like I was the black sheep, right?
Outcast.
Of the outcast of the flock. So I had no immediate community or company to keep me. Most of the friends I had were friends I made within that, not just within that religious community, but within that church community and all. And so most of my friends were told to stay away from me because I was asking too many questions. And it looked like if I didn't get the questions, I'm going to die. I was making everybody ask the same questions too. And most people are not used to questions. Most people are not used to questions like that. Most people do not understand that it's possible to ask a honest question, and it doesn't even mean that you're trying to threaten the faith. I think that I've discovered over the years that our faith was built on answered questions and all.
Questions, exactly.
So, so basically for me, so what happened next was I began to make certain friends who were not exactly Christian people, and the people had a community, and so I discovered Facebook. Fine, I'd registered on Facebook before that time, but Facebook now became my solace since my physical friends were no longer available. So I discovered Facebook. I discovered some other friends who were not exactly super spiritual people, who were your everyday, normal, everyday kind of guys and kind of girls. And also, that's how I ventured into that kind of life. And they began to show me from their way of thinking that there was another way to see things, another way to see life. Or before you wake up in the morning, Sunday morning, you know you have to go to church. But then I had friends who were not exactly that interested or enthusiastic about it. And I realized that I won't die if I don't exactly go to church. And it made me understand more my faith. I began to see in its right context why people were instructed to gather, not to miss the fellowship of the brethren. It was not because you will die if you don't go, but because of that strengthening that came from it. And then social media became another tool of change for me. So many of my friends, people whom I communicated with all the time, were white people who were not exactly Nigerians. And I have noticed that where religion is concerned, well, almost where everything is concerned, it looks as though people who are not African seem to always be pushing the frontiers. It looks like that. And it looks like we're always catching up behind. And it always looks as though once the thing they've discovered enters into our community, we bastardize it. We take it beyond, we take it, we overstretch it. And also, most of the guys I started communicating with 2010 or 11 were Jewish priests, Jewish rabbis, people who were of who seemed to understand the culture. So I began to ask them questions. I began to ask white pastors questions. And because of the fact that their culture, their general culture allows, is more welcoming for questions. So it reflects in the way they handle their religion too. So I was able to ask questions. I was able to be on someone's neck asking questions and get them answer my questions without them feeling that I was disrespectful and all of that. So the fact that I changed my community, I began to relate to people who were not exactly Nigerian in that sense. It really helped me. So I also then discovered Nigerians too, who were on that journey as well. So we almost attracted ourselves in those social media spaces. I was added to groups, I was added to pages where like minds gathered with like questions and they asked the same questions and all. And I began to make Nigerians, even so now I'm still in communication with many of the people whom I met in that journey until I was able to rationalize most of the questions that were in my mind. I still have not gotten all the answers to my questions. I will not make a mistake by saying that I've gotten all the answers to my questions. But basically, I feel like I'm in a comfortable place in my journey in the faith where I'm willing to say, even if I don't have the questions, the answers to the questions, I can still keep going, expecting that along the line, some things will make sense to me. And also, so basically the community, that community shift was what helped me to keep pressing, to keep pushing. And also that's what I would say did it for me. Yes, that's what I would say did it for me. Okay, I think Uncle. Okay, maybe I'm logged off. All right. Okay, maybe I should chat him up personally. I can't find him. Yeah, I think he got disconnected.
You should be on mute now.
Yeah, okay. I'm on mute already.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm back.
Okay, good. So I think I answered. I think I answered the question. Or do I go? Well, basically, for me, let me just summarize everything I said so that we can just flow again from where I stopped. So to answer the question, which was what was the thing that helped me keep going, the simple answer is community. That community shift. The fact that I was able to engage people who didn't make me feel guilty for asking questions, people who made me feel comfortable to ask questions, people who still brought me back within the confines of the Bible, within the confines of the Word of God, and still encouraged me to ask questions without making me feel guilty, without making me feel bad about it and all. I think those were for me that's for me the major thing. That community shift that happened for me helped me to keep asking questions, because if I remained within the confines of the community I was coming from, the Christian community I was coming from, in that sense, it was very, very repressive. Most of my questions would have been shut down immediately it arose, without any answers being given. But it helped me see the world differently and helped me realize that a new system of things could be built. And to the best of my ability, I hope it's what I'm still maintaining till now in every Christian activity that I get involved in and all of that. So,
Okay, awesome contributions. It's beautiful because we recently had a conversation about the power of communities. And one thing that I've noticed is Aisha's response and response from Usen shows that we cannot lead change in isolation. We cannot lead change in isolation. We need to always intersect both every community within our community for us to be able to properly lead change. That's the power of community. So thank you so much for sharing that. Now we've exhausted the time for the first session. Let's jump right into the discourse, right, where we try to tackle the real tough questions. So the first question I would like to us to understand, that I think will help us understand how to lead change, is we need to understand why is our faith, why is culture so influential on how communities are shaped? Why is it that, why is Nigeria or Africa such a religious community, and then the US is not, is faith-based, right? But they are still economically strong. So why is faith, religion, and culture so dominant, so influential in how economies of communities are shaped? Right. I know it might be a tough question, so you can take a breather to just ruminate on it. So Aisha, you'll go first again.
Okay. That is a very interesting question, and it's a whole course in sociology, I'll have you know. So I would say, in quotes, I'll just give you a crash course. The developmental stages that the US and Western Europe has gone through is very different from what Africa has gone through. So they've had an age of enlightenment, we've had colonialism. So the reactions to these eras are very different, and culture has also been affected. So it's a very different, they're just two very different things and two very different reactions. And so when people often, tend to see the connection between religion holding us back from actually being economical, like growing economically, because there is a connection. Because when technology started to advance in Europe, they had no need for religion the way they used to hold on to, because technology seemed to answer their questions. There was development in medicine, there was development in printing presses. So all these things, they didn't need it. But when they brought these things to us, they brought it with religion. So you can't divorce these two things away. And so, and in a
Wow,
way, it's
that's
not,
powerful.
it's, thank you. It's not, because I feel like, see, I just had this discussion with somebody. Religion is not a bad thing, because we Africans have had religion before colonialism came in. I'm totally, I hate colonialism. I hate what it stands for. I hate what it has done to Africans. But we've had religion, we've had Islam and Christianity before colonialism came. So that's why you've had things like Sudanese and Ethiopian Jews, you've had Ethiopian Muslims, you've had you've had Christians, you had Ethiopian Christians and Eritrean Christians, and you've had Coptic Christians. So these are things that we've had before colonialism, and we need to reclaim that narrative back. It's not religion. We've had these things without the perspective that hasn't been clouded by the lens of colonialism, and we can reclaim that back. We Africans, Nigerians specifically, need to, stay woke. They need to be awake. I don't know how we are going to do it, but we have to go through an age of enlightenment that is for us and not for Europe or not for America. We have to go through that. So really, that's my submission.
I'm going to come back to that. That was really powerful to listen to. I don't know if we should go back to that question during the strategy session, but no, I think you should answer it now, just to keep this as interesting, right? What do you think would define this age of enlightenment that we need to go to for us to make that shift in narrative that would directly affect our economic health? If you need time to think about that, you can just.
I don't know. Maybe you should give me time. I don't know. I don't know.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll bring that back during the strategy session. So, Mr. Usen, Pastor Usen. So, what do you
All
think?
right. So, like in fact, I was so excited when she began to speak about the fact that we already had religion before the colonial era. This is something I was thinking that if it was not going to be mentioned, then I'm going to start having to mention that at all. In fact, it's amazing how that you see that what we even call the basic major religions that we have in Nigeria or in Africa right now is Christianity and the Muslim religion. So you see that many of these religions were not exactly started by they weren't started by the Western world. They weren't started by white men in that sense. You realize that many of these things were culture. For example, what we call the Bible was passed down. People were called the Essenes. The Essenes had a couple of books put together, which we now bring together what we now call the Judeo culture and all. So now you see that we had Ethiopians who were already Christians long before colonialism began. So it looks as though when colonialism entered into the mix, into the African mix, a lot of issues began. So this is what the issue is. When colonialism came, we learned dependency. We learned a pseudo dependency on a culture that is not exactly ours. So, to take for example, we saw the white. I'm careful to use the word white man because when I use the word white man, it has a tendency to sell a racial slur, which is not exactly what I'm even trying to sell at all. But you found out that the white man came in and did bring certain things to the black man. Now, the black man received those things because those things were different from the technology he had. He had certain technologies already. For example, we already had our own civilization. Egypt had a civilization that predated any Western that predated the intrusion of Western civilization into our culture. Egypt already had a running culture, a running civilization. So, but what happened was that the white man came in, and the white man brought with them their technological advancements, brought with them their culture, brought with them their religion. And what happened with us is that we began to depend on what they brought in. Take, for example, you see that this idea affects everything. It affects everything. Let me use pastor because that's within the context of my religion. A pastor in Nigeria can have a church of, let's say, 2,000 people. Okay, and he has a church of 2,000 people, and his members are not exactly. They come because, well, that's the church they've been attending, so they come, but they're not exactly as enthusiastic about it. But if that pastor wants to change the game, if he wants to change the game for a period of time, he can just invite one white pastor that probably has a membership of 75 people and a membership of maybe 30 people to come all the way from the abroad to come to Nigeria, come and preach. And throughout that period that the man is around, everybody's really excited because one white foreign pastor has come in. So it looks like we have learned dependency on a people that is not exactly ours. So that's why you found out that it even involved in the slave trade. We sold our own people. We by ourselves carried our people and sold our own people simply because we're doing this to exchange traditions, to exchange culture. And also, so answering the question, how will we be able to plug it? How will we be able to plug it, we have to go back to realizing that Africans, we as Africans, we can do things ourselves. It's almost becoming an annoying sight for me, where when Julius Berger or one of the construction companies wants to build a road, you will see one white man there. And it makes me wonder, is there nobody who is from here that can actually fit into the role that man is playing? Why do we have to bring him from another country down? And the truth is, we have people who have this expertise. In fact, we probably have people who have this expertise, who are foremen, who are laborers under that man, but space will be created. I worked in the construction industry for a period of time, and I saw how the people who had knowledge, who had technical know-how, will be sidestepped for somebody else who will be asking us, because our terrain is different. The way we build here is different. It is, if you look at, let's use OU for example, the people who built OU, did not build OU for Nigeria. They didn't build OU for Nigeria. That's the fact of life. That's why you notice that sometimes in lecture theaters, the roofing systems have given way, because we are in the our weather is different from their weather there. You see all sorts of air cooling vents that don't exactly fit our culture, that don't fit our weather here. So they basically imported stuff that didn't work for us. About 2005 or 2006 or so, if I'm not mistaken, the Nigerian government imported dogs, security dogs. They imported security dogs. It's amazing. They imported security dogs that are not bred in Nigeria. They spent so much money importing security dogs, and what happened was that maybe those dogs got in here, they died, because they're not built for this environment. And also, here's what I'm saying. We now, all of us now, have to go back to realizing that we are enough. Okay, we have to go back to realizing that we are enough. We are good enough. We can depend on ourselves. We have been trained enough. We've had so many years of being ourselves. We've had so many years of being ourselves that we can actually
our own challenges.
We've had so many years of being Africans. So we've had so many years of being. I've had so many years of living the Nigerian life. So I know what it is like to be a Nigerian. I know what it is like to be able to profess solutions. I'm saying all of us seated here. So we understand what it means to be. So we need to go back to that culture of competency, of dependence on ourselves, on our ability to deal with our own problems. Basically, that I think if we can plug that, every other it will reflect in every aspect of our lives as a people. Basically that.
Wow, that was really insightful and impactful. Thank you so much for that. So let's jump right into the next session, which is let us get practical. Let's bring it home. Now, the conversation around the venture makers for the future of Africa, right, is that the young people are the ones that are going to change this narrative, right? Because more than 60% of this, our African, I'm not generalizing if I say our African demography is actually young, right? And these young people are mostly represented in the undergraduate community. For crying out loud, we spend at least minimum 4 years within a geographical location, right? So I think it's worth the conversation if we just talk about us, the undergraduate community. So for practicalities, right, how can the undergraduate community, right, the faith-based organizations, the religious institutions in the undergraduate community, how can we change the narrative about the economic look of Africa, right? So Aisha, I hope you have an answer for us. Now, because you talked about this stage of enlightenment. So how can this undergraduate community, let's forget the general populace, let's talk about us. What is our own contribution, right? So how can we change the narrative through, as you said, this stage of enlightenment? What can we do as a community?
Okay, so I think that, we need to start embracing, I would say the first thing we need to do, and it seems like a simple thing if you ask me, I'm perhaps being too idealistic, I don't know, so, but I think we need to start embracing our culture. For example, you want to do something and you don't look at it, you're thinking about, I don't know, another year, how do I explain? Okay. So you know how we all grew up rather on, I don't know, daytime TV shows, and then the daytime TV shows were not really Nigerian. For people that grew up in, well, not poor neighborhoods and, kind of middle class to the rich, they grew up on TV shows that were not really Nigerian. And so their thinking itself, because their socialization isn't really, really for Nigerians. And then because pop culture is a global thing, it has been like, it's really like globalization. So what happens is that, we see Adidas, we see Nike, we see Converse. We don't have any household names that are ours. We see Facebook, we see Disney Channel, we see Trap, even our music. Nothing is who listens to Fuji among us, like that kind of thing. Exactly, like everything is really like it's really like the socialization of like by the media and even schools and everything is. It's, I would say it's really, from a sociologist's point of view, I would say it's really not for us. And so we need to do things that are by Nigerians for Nigerians. We need to sort of embrace that, because until we start to do that, we won't, I learned this lesson most right when I volunteered at a deaf culture organization, when I realized that we use American Sign Language, but we actually do have indigenous sign language, and it affects people very negatively. These things affect us negatively, but we don't know. So to answer your question, really, I think that an age of enlightenment will not come until there is a revolution in our thinking. And maybe that's a very idealistic thing to say. Maybe it takes one person, and then from one person, other people, you give people the courage to say, okay, you know what, if this person is doing it, I can do it too. That kind of thing. Maybe it just takes one person to say, I am going to make something for Nigerians by Nigerians. And I see it happen slowly. I think about Zikoko, for example. My good friend Fuad is there.
Yeah, Fuad.
Amazing things with the cocoa. I mean, it's like BuzzFeed, but I think it's a disservice even say it's like BuzzFeed. It's just amazing what they do. Media for Nigerians by Nigerians. I think of Kicks. Kicks is this, I don't know if you guys know it. It's like this shoe company.
Shoe brand. Yeah.
Exactly. And what they do is amazing. It's so important that when we produce things. And see, when I think about it, there's nowhere in the world that is teeming like with ideas than the undergraduate community. Think about it. Facebook started when Mark Zuckerberg was in school, and think of Reddit. All these things. People were in school for crying out loud when I started this. The MySpace era. Stuff like this. You have ideas when you're in school because you don't have anything to do. So you just like
you don't have worries.
Exactly, your parents are paying your school fees, like they are giving you money, like call them up. I'm like, yo, daddy, what's up now? Like that kind of thing. So like you have an idea. You might not even have like the resources, because I acknowledge that people are really struggling in school. I am privileged. I acknowledge that. It's not like I came from rich family or anything, but I am privileged because I never had to worry about a lot of things. But I acknowledge that people are struggling in school and they still have ideas, but don't give up on them. That's my point. Don't give up on it right now. So and it's so important that people also create spaces for like adults, the Muslim community, for example, older people, create spaces for these people to be able to be comfortable enough to explore these ideas.
Express themselves.
Exactly. You tend to see a lot of, and I think it comes with age, because probably by the time I'm old, I'm going to be like, I can't take this risk because I have more to lose. But that's why we have to have people that can guide us. Like, see, mentorship, it has to be a thing. Mentorship has to be a thing. What else again? I'm thinking about giving people grants. I mean, zakat is a whole thing in Muslim ideology. Give people these things to explore their ideas if they fit into the zakat, if they're eligible for zakat. Like, these are things. There's so many things that honestly I can't even mention because I don't know them all. But just these are the few things I have to say essentially.
All right, brilliant submission. And just to add to what Aaisha has said, I've had the same Niger brand. Guys, thank you. I've had the same conversation about Niger brands versus global brands. And one thing that people miss out in the conversation is that these brands have had time that our brands do not have. Everybody calls an Armani, a Hugo Boss. If you hear how much time those guys have spent doing business, some of them 20, 50, 30 years, 100 years even. So of course they can build better products that look, extra fly than what we're doing here. But it's a matter of time and not a matter of competence actually, because we need to look at that conversation. But the thing is, we cannot defer saying, oh, since they are beating us at the game, we can't get involved. No, we need to start creating value. And of course, we, the undergraduate community, should most participate in that because we have that time. So imagine you start, a brand, in your undergraduate days. That means in the next 4 years, 5 years, when you are out, you've already built 5 years into the brand. So the next 5 years will just be another 10 years where you're building competence around your value proposition. So thank you so much, Aaisha, for that brilliant submission. So Usen, what do you have to say about that?
All right. Now, while in fact I almost have what she said is perfectly flawless. There's almost nothing. There's almost when the bucket is full, it's just best to leave it that way. But however, there are a few things I also want to stress, which is number one, if we try to go through, one of the questions everybody could be wondering is the role of the government and all of this. I think I saw that pop up somewhere. The truth is that the government will not be able to do anything as it is now. So everything has to go back to the unicellular beginning of life. Now, we remember in social studies that time, we were told that the beginning of every community is the family. The beginning of every community is the family, and the family is where everything begins to spring out from. Now, when I look at, because of my love for learning, when I look at the Quran or I look at the Bible, I realize that there is so much teaching in faith. There's so much faith-based teaching, but that because of how we super spiritualize them, we have not realized that stuff that should actually be applied for everyday living. So let me give you an example. Like one, I must have mentioned to you before. In the Bible, you'll find out where it says a good man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And that is a culture that the Jews and people who are generally within that area, those who are people who are Jews, who are Arabs, who are within that middle area of the world. That's a general culture that they have, that when a young man is getting married, the grandfather should have kept money for him or should have kept the house for him or something. But we hear that, we read that in the Christian religion, in the Christian faith, and we just super spiritualize and just tell ourselves, oh, God is our grandfather, he has kept something for us, and we just say all sorts of things and walk away. If we are going to come back to that age of enlightenment, we have to come back to practicality. We have to become extremely practical. So this means that Aaisha goes on to have a family, I go on to have my family, and because the truth is, right now we are that breaking point. We are the middle line. We're that wall of defense as it is now. So Aaisha goes on to have a family, I go on to have my family, and from a tender age, Jews have round table conversation with the kids. In fact, an average Jew boy, by the time he's 16, 18, he has MBA worth of knowledge as regards business and investment, not from any other book, from their Torah, from the Torah. So and look at it. The average Shango worshiper. Most people do not know this. That the African tradition, most of those incantations that the African tradition has, when you hear the incantation, look like as if they use it in Nigerian movies to call out demons and all. If you're somebody who is versed in the tradition, once you hear those incantations are information that has been passed down via oral tradition from one generation to another. How the great grandfather used a particular knowledge, used a particular leaf to win, how we use a particular information to maybe they mention how that, oh, this particular grandfather discovered this particular leaf, and this leaf was able to cure a certain disease. And they say it in the incantation, but that information is being passed down via oral tradition to everyone who learns that. But the African man, instead of him to learn that and go find out what that leaf is and probably make it into a drug or make it into something that people can use, he puts it off into the area of superstition, and it becomes a problem for the African mind. So here is what we must do. We must return back to practicality. Every one of us who is here, whether we like it or not, we are at least more than 4 people in this conversation. That means we are at least 4 families. I think none of us gets married to each other, but we're at least 4 families here. So that means there are at least 4 future families here. We must return back to that basic tenet that every religion teaches. God spoke about Abraham, saying that Abraham was the one who was preferred because he was going to be able to communicate with his children. So that means that he was going to run a home cell system of some sort where he was going to be able to communicate that idea, the ideas he has learned with his kids, how we can return there. The truth is, you and I may never eventually see that age of enlightenment. We may never see it because it's something that is handed over to someone. So what we can do is, at the very least, train our kids in practical thinking. When we sit down to have conversations, when we're eating dinner, we're not just discussing how mommy is annoying, how daddy is annoying. We're not just having conversation with how mommy annoyed us and how we wish that we married a slimmer wife or something. We're having conversations that are around global empowerment. Imagine if parents sent their kids. Maybe you heard there was a seminar somewhere. You sent your kids to travel down there to go engage in that seminar, to go be part of that seminar, and come back home. And then you ask questions. What did you learn there? Imagine if parents had such platforms where kids were told to learn global languages, were told to learn their language. Many of us cannot even speak our language. So imagine if kids were told to go learn their native languages. Imagine that. Imagine if many of us cannot exactly even communicate in our native language. So it's a whole lot of work, but we are going to be the ones that have to start it. Honestly, we will not be able to see that age of enlightenment. I'm being as practical as possible. We'll probably only be able to see it in our heads, see it in our dreams, see it when we have visions or eureka moments from the other side. But however, if we start off with the people whom we are going to raise as our kids, you are a thought leader. You have all of us under here. We are your kids, as it is right now. So you start off being able to teach us regular. That's why churches, mosques, places like this are places people aggregate together, and information is being communicated to them. Oh God, my pastor side has shown forth. I've been here. I've run like 2 services. God have mercy. I end now. I end now.
Wow, amazing. Thank you so much. We're still going to have conversations, right? I'm gonna plead with you to give us some little extra time. All right. So one thing is, let's talk about the topic of practicality, right? Please, sorry about the noise. Of course, I'm in an office. So how do we different? How do we find that thin line between what is faith-based and what offers practicality? Now, Usen said something about that most times, because we're not exposed to the practicality of the things that we're learning in our faith and our religion. So how do we best explore the practicality of our faith in our everyday problems and challenges, right? So let Aisha go at that. So
Okay, I'm unmuted now. I'm unmuted now. So to answer the question, I've actually been reading the comments, and the person that he said I don't agree is my father. And you see what I said about like old people not being able to take risks. Like he's just exemplifying that. I don't know. That's just the truth. I don't. Because I am young and everything just seems like if there's an opportunity, I am just going to jump at it. I'm sorry. And this is the age I am in right now. But just off the top of my head, I would say that I would interpret that question as really as what are the maybe perhaps what are the collective responsibilities that both faiths need to come together to sort of because the truth, like I said, nobody is like North Korea. Even North Korea is just an ideal. They themselves are not North Korea. They have to sort of ask for help sometimes, right? So I would say that it's just we need to work through trust issues. See, sometimes we have to be adaptable, we have to be flexible, and we have to be practical, really. So, for example, I'm sorry if I'm not answering this question very correctly. You are, for example, a modest fashionista. You have a business, for example, and you know that this business that to get the profit you want, the Muslim population will not, only catering to the Muslim population will not cut it for you. So why don't you, it's not as if it's only Muslims that dress modestly. We have people that that are Christians, they dress modestly too. In fact, I'm going to tell you something. See, one of the first when the modest fashion industry was just blooming in about 2006, and it wasn't really a global thing, and Muslims were still wearing hijabs and looked like camel humps, and it was kind of ridiculous because I would not wear hijabs like that right now. I look at my mom's old pictures and I'm like, whoa, like this woman, please, you know. One of the first people to cater to Muslims was an Orthodox Jewish company.
Yep.
And they were catering to
Wow.
Muslims. Yes,
Wow.
they were catering to Muslims in America, in New York.
For a
And
long time now.
honestly, that was what they were doing. We need to expand our horizons. We have so much in common. I am telling you, we have so much in common. So, like, it doesn't even have to be like modest fashion. You are, for example, you are renting out speakers on Sundays. But you know that on Fridays, Muslims are going to also use those speakers for Juma. Why are you not renting it out to them? We have to break down the trust issues. Like business, I'm sorry, business is business. Like when there's no money, it doesn't matter whether you're a Christian or not. You're going to starve. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
So you have to be practical, you have to be flexible, you have to be adaptable. You need to sort of, I'm not like, if I'm not saying that you should not have ethics. See, I'm all for ethics. This is my criticism a lot of times when I'm arguing with people against, the capitalist system that we find ourselves in. We don't have ethics a lot of times. Have ethics by all means. But you also need to know that the business is going to move on without you. You need to understand that. Batel, am I doing okay?
You are hitting the nail on the head brilliantly.
Okay. So this is really it for me. This is the end for me.
Thank you so much. That was wow. That was really insightful. Usen, what do you have to say?
Why do you always have to do this to me? Why do you always have to put me behind such great contributions like that? Okay, awesome. I'm still just going to repeat what she has said. We have so much in common. I know that this is something that many Christians don't like to hear me say. Many Christians don't like to hear me say it, but I love to say it. We have so much in common, so much in common. At the very least, we are humans at the end of it. We are humans at the base of all of it. And all of us are reaching out to God whom none of us can see. The Christian cannot exactly see him, the Muslim cannot exactly see him. The God whom all of us are reaching out faith-based, are reaching out to something that we all sense. We all sense that someone. We all sense that someone. And to the best of our abilities, we're reaching out the best that we can. Heck, Christians cannot even agree among themselves. So we even need to create trust among ourselves. The white garment guy is always seen as the guy. Every time you want to act a false prophet in a movie, you make sure he wears white garments and all. Whereas we have solid white garment guys who truly are sincere and truly will do all they can within their ability to be of help. And we have guys in suits who will do all they can to ruin your life and all. So we see that even among ourselves, there is a general trust issue, and even among ourselves. I think that's one body who we claim we are under Jesus Christ. We have general trust issues within us, and I think it's down to that human thing. Everybody wants to build their empire. Everybody wants to build their own thing. Everybody wants to be the best. I want to be the best pastor in the world. The guy that has 2 million people comes on the Sunday morning, causing hold up on the road, and it makes me feel good. Awesome, it's fine. If that's what your dream and ambition is, good, whatever rocks your boat. But back to what she said, we need to come back to having trust between ourselves. I tried so hard to reach out to the Muslim community when I was an undergraduate. I tried so hard. The Christians felt I was being stupid, I was being dumb. Some of the Muslims I spoke to, because the Christians felt that I was being dumb, they also felt like, what's this guy doing here? This guy a spy? Is he coming to, what is he coming to do? And all I really tried so hard to reach out, because I hope that we'll be able to have conversations. We'll be able to sit down and have conversations. I'll be able to ask questions, and not asking questions from a trying to hack each other point of view. The truth is, I remember I okay, I've not said this publicly before, but I attended one MSN meeting once, and we guys were speaking about who is Jesus. And I literally wore a full jalabia. My friend allowed me come in. I wore the whole outfit. I came in, I sat down. Some pictures were taken of me. It was my church got to hear about it. Oh boy, everybody ate me for dinner, breakfast the next day, lunch the next day, dinner the next day. It was wicked. But I learned so much. I learned how people from another faith saw my Jesus, whom I felt I had. Since I'm the one who created this, I have patents to him. Sorry. So I saw how people from other faiths saw him, and it expanded my mind again about it made me love him a little more, a lot more. And so I feel like we need to have more conversations like that, where people from different faiths can sit down in a conducive environment, not in an environment where everybody is willing to bring out thoughts at the end of the day, but in a conducive environment, have conversations. I can ask questions, and then I can have my questions answered, and I can leave there appreciating our difference a lot more, and appreciating a lot more as well. So I think for me, that would be it. That aggregating, bringing people together to be able to have conversations, and maybe trust will come from it. For example, if I see Aisha on the streets now, I'm generally disposed to want to say, hey, I know you from somewhere. That's because we had a conversation here. And if she sees me on the street, if she was driving a car, she probably want to park and be like, hey guy, where are you headed? And then I come in and all because we've had this conversation. So I think we need to have more conversations actually, so people can let down their guards, as in we're not going to kill each other. We're the only ones we have. As in we cannot be friends to goats or cows. It's human beings that we'll be friends with. So, well, I think those are the things we need to do. Conversations like this.
Wow, amazing stuff. This is so interesting, right? I remember clearly stating it that one thing that should even define why we need to work together based on whatever faith we have is, even though we are not united by one belief system, we are actually united by the same challenges that we all experience. Your Christianity will not hold you back from hunger or from you not having clothes. Economics, the state of nations, the wealth or prosperity level of nations will directly affect you independent of your faith. So it's fine. Let's not agree on some things. That's totally fine. But when it comes to the things that we all share as a challenge, we can focus on that because the challenges keep growing even when our solutions are not growing. So if we are not creating enough solutions to tackle the growing problems, we'll remain in the same problems, fighting under the same worst conditions. It's better to be fighting when there's AC everywhere. The shout is different. So awesome. So we've taken more time, but I think we still need to have so we're going to round up on this conversation, right? Which is the forum. Now, Aisha made a very brilliant point about mentorship. And Usen also stressed the important point about interfacing and having conversations with communities that are totally different from you. Seek a different perspective, seek a different conversation. So one thing I think we need to focus on is how do we build, cross-faith relationships? How do we build cross-faith mentorship? How do we facilitate cross-stakeholder relationships that directly affect the community? Now, let's not even talk about Nigeria or Africa. Let's talk about within this small ecosystem of an undergraduate community. How can leaders facilitate cross-faith, multi-stakeholder relationships towards, contributing to the future of Africa? So, Aisha, could you respond to that?
All right, thank you again for asking that question. I just want to put this out there before I address, how we can build not just tolerance, because just very tolerating each other is not good enough. We're actually coming to appreciate the differences. I just want to put this out there. If you are in a position whereby you have to build bridges between people who are different from you, you first need to look within your community. I see it as someone whose job for about a year was actually being in charge of the interfaith communication and dialogue arm of our organization. I see this all the time, and even for myself, I'm also very guilty of this. There are people within my community that need to be reached out to that feel excluded for whatever reason. Maybe Muslims who have a different ideology, or maybe, for example, Muslims who look different from me. When I say look different, I just don't mean maybe they're not wearing hijab or they're not, wearing jalabia or anything. I mean Muslims that are probably disabled, Muslims who are
Mm.
not in the same economic class as I am, and I'm not reaching out to these people, but I want
Mm.
to go and reach out to other people. That is hypocrisy at of the highest form.
Mm.
So you
Wow,
want it to be
brilliant.
a success. You want it to be a success. You need to reach out. You have to make sure that your faith is for everybody. Because at the end of the
Mm.
day, when faith came, whatever faith you practice, it came to come and save people. It did not come to exclude anybody.
Yep.
With
Yep.
that being said, with that being said, if you want to learn how to build bridges, you have to be patient. You have to be patient. One, two, you have to consistently renew your intentions. This is not about you. So it's very hard to, at the beginning, we're humans, we're selfish. You want to center the conversation around you. You just want it to be like, oh, people see what you are doing, you're like, part of this, you're part of that. Like, nigga, you have to stop. You have to stop. This is not it has never been about you. It's not about you. So you need to make sure that you don't center yourself around the conversation, and you need to be able to read and do research about why people do what they do. I mean, literally, empathy is not something you come to earth with. So you have to develop empathy. You have to take a muscle. You have to develop it. So what it means is that you have to read books from not for example, if I want to read about Christianity, I'm not going to, and I'm in this job. I'm not going to read, or I have this goal. I'm not going to read a book about Christianity written from the perspective of a Muslim, because I know that at the end of the day, it's just going to be like propaganda. I'm going to read
Wow,
Christianity from the
brilliant.
perspective of
Wow.
a Christian, and
Mm.
vice versa. You need to understand why people do what they do. Why is it that Christians, like, you have to literally, it's hard, but you really need to try to put aside your bias. And there are many things, even though we have, see, this is not to say that you should not believe in what you believe in. Absolutely not. See, this diversity is what makes us beautiful. This diversity is what makes us stand out. But you need to also, at the end of the day, have an appreciation for the finer things that your Christian, your people of other faiths, not just because we're not the only people. It's not just Muslims or Christians in
Yeah.
Nigeria. We have
Yeah.
Jews, we have other people, other faiths, minor
True.
faiths, even
True.
up to
Mm.
traditional worshippers. You have to have an appreciation for the other things they do that are so beautiful, that you look
True.
at them and
Mm.
you're like, oh, you know what? I wish as a Muslim I could embody this better.
Mm.
So yeah, that's it for me. That's it for me.
Ah, man. Wow. Oof. Wow. Amazing. Please, Usen, let's see. I know she has set the bar so high.
What can I
Wow.
do? What can I say anyway?
Wow.
Basically, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to remember a personal experience that actually changed the game for me, and maybe it will give context to everything that she has said, because every single element of what she has said, and even of course she took it the extra mile. Of course, she blew it out of the water, but every single element of what she spoke about was in that experience. So we young people, it turned out I lived in an area in Ife at the time, and I had to help a particular church at that time to help them. They were building at that time. They're building at the time, and so we needed because of the fact that I had expertise in that field. So it turned out I was the guy who seemed to be backing out the orders a lot more. Now during that period, just not too far from us, there was another. There was a, should I call, well, they are an Islamic community anyway. So they built a house where many of them lived in, and all. So they were building that house, and something happened. A wall that they had fell. There was a wall that they had built, and that wall had collapsed because of rain and all of that. And I remember how everybody were like, ah, it's God that's caught them. like that. I remember how everybody felt, God has caught them. See now, see what happens. Yeah, I think somebody actually injured something. It fell on somebody was actually by the fence at the time. Like, guys, God that caught them. If they had known, if they accepted Jesus Christ would have prevented the wall from falling. As though Christians don't have their own share of disasters and all of that. But I remember there was an elderly person among us, I got to realize that he was once a Muslim. While he grew up in a Muslim community before he traveled and then became Christian and all of that. So he has that empathy. There's that part of him where he knows, he feels the pain of that sect, of that group. So he took all of us, he carried all of us, and we all went there. So he told us that he was going to pay for our labor that day, for us to be able to help them unpack the blocks and all of that, and try to help them construct. Now, this changed me. When we got there, the mother of the house, she was probably dressed just like Aaisha is now, and she looked very, very trendy. She was not your average, there's how we Christians just have in our brain that a Muslim should just have every part of her body covered, which is beautiful, but it's foreign to us. So it looks somehow in our heads, just like how when we see a brother who wears big trousers and all, and maybe carries a bag and is preaching all around the place, it looks weird to people who are not brought up in that culture. And also, she came in, she saw us working, and she prepared one of the best. I've not tasted stew that good in a long time. She prepared stew, and please, Batel, my wife must not hear that I said that she prepared stew that was. so,
Oh my God.
oh Lord, this is online. Jesus Christ. This will come back to haunt me. So she prepared really, really good warm stew and food, and she served us. Someone said she's here already. She served us, and we ate it, and I realized that she sat down with us. The Muslim brothers came back from where they went to. They joined us, and that one day, for me, I will never forget that man. He's late now, but that one day forever stands in my mind as I got to see that it's rain. I saw from my knowledge of building, I saw that if there was good drainage, there was no drainage in that environment. You know what was funny? A few years after that, the place that we were building, the wall, the fence of the place that we've been also caved into. So nobody, I don't now know. At least we couldn't laugh at ourselves and all of that. But it's beautiful how that kind of environment allowed me to see things differently. So the best I can say is, if you're in a place where basically be of help to people, irrespective of the sticker that is on their car. If the sticker is 2020, my year of power in the name of Jesus Christ, and you are not there, you're not from there, do well to help if you see that person's car has broken down on the road, or do well to help if while you were trying to help, as the person opened the door of the tinted glass, you saw that they were all robed up, turban and all of that. Don't just drive your car and zoom off. Do well to be of help. I think it's down to that basic thing that we all share in our religion, which is that teaching of love. Do well to be your brother's keeper. Do well to reach out to your brother. Your brother must be reached out to. That we are all from one religion of humanity, all of us. And while we serve God, and while we all serve
the religion
God
of
in our different
humanity.
ways, yes, that's where we all are all humans. And also, like how Patel said, we are united by all our pains and our struggles. My car gets bad on the road. Some other person's car gets bad on the road. Let's do well to look past. Let's do well to look past the good Samaritan story. Is a classic story that Jesus said. The Jews were not supposed to help the Samaritan, but one Jew did. So I think we should be more in love with ourselves, really. Basically.
Wow. I have been impacted. I feel goosebumps everywhere. Thank you so much for lending your time.
Spray the goosebumps.
Wow, thank you so much for lending us your time. You've given a voice to a revolutionary generation, right? It might look like, it's just a small number of people here, but we have started something powerful. Thank you so much, Usen. Thank you, Aisha, for lending your voice. It has been really amazing. And, I'm so glad that we're still able to keep the time. This is just 1:15. So this was time well spent, and I really appreciate you for joining in. I would have really loved you to give conclusionary statements, but of course, I would like to take more of your time. So thank you so much, Usen, for coming. Thank you, Aisha, for coming. And I hope you guys have a great day. But if you would still like to leave a final comment, if you don't mind the extra time, you can leave a comment.
Aisha.
Oh, Aisha. Okay.
Aisha.
I was saying I have nothing to say. I mean, Usain, I gave us so beautifully that story of having a paradigm shift. That was amazing. So I have nothing to say.
Thank you so much. All right, awesome. I think we've had an amazing time. So that ends the conversations around series 2. Wow, I'm really excited for what series 3 will bring. Thank you so much for joining in, and have a beautiful day.
You too. Bye, everybody.
Yeah, bye.